Hi, so I wanted to explain what my interpretation is of the Buddhist jhanas in terms of LWC theory, for reference for me, so I can look back at this, and also for anybody who's interested. So here is like the zeroth jhana, or is like not being in a jhana. So um, this is the direction of time there. Those are like, this is a distribution of matter and energy in a moment of time, which is like the shortest unit of time. And here's the past, here's the future. So time's going this way. So this is like a freeze frame of time. And it's like everything, and it's 3D because it's a cube, so everything's like distributed in space a certain way in that moment of time. Obviously, this is the experience's past, this is the experience's future, and this is the distribution of the moment right there in the present, or this whatever moment it is. And then this is the direction of time. So that's what the model is there. So that's not being in a jhana. That's just like real experience there. So here's the first jhana in terms of my interpretation, in terms of LWC theory. So this is the first jhana. So here's a moment of real experience, or there's a symbol of like real experience there, and here's virtual experience. So when someone meditates, they reduce the influence of the physical body, and obviously they reduce the influence that the physical environment has on them, and so they reduce the influence of their CC physical subbody, and they reduce the influence of the environmental physical subbody on like their mind. So so here's it representing, this is representing the real experience and the virtual experience, like imagination or a dream, or in this case whatever, like meditative, whatever goes on during meditation that's not like purely physically perceived, which is in here. This is like the virtual stuff, like visualization, imagination, that kind of thing, like visual thoughts, audible thoughts. It would be in this cube, distributed like that in that moment. But I didn't show the other moments of this experience, because it's just, I'm just kind of like imply those and include those in like this cube area. Okay, so this is like the first jhana. This happens, right? So you got like the physical subbody, CC subbody, so it's not having it's not influenced as much by the physical environment, so it's easier to have a virtual experience right there, like more clear, because there's fewer distractions in the environment, physical environment. So, but when it happens in the first jhana, what I think happens, like in terms of LWC theory, is that like people say it's the bliss born of seclusion. So like it's easier to have these virtual experiences and like stimulate them or produce them, I guess is a better word. This is the first jhana. It's easier to produce them. So what do people do most of the time when they can just produce anything they want in virtual experience? They produce rudiments, like a virtual experience of survival, comfort, pleasure, recognition, love, wisdom, courage. They produce that. It's because it's like, why not? And so, and people have like, talk about PD, like the physical pleasurable sensation. It's like a button that people would press to get like physical pleasure. They stimulate their mind or whatever to give them physical pleasure. And it's like, why wouldn't they? Like, what? And it's like, what animal would not? Or a lot of people would just keep pressing the button, like, give me pleasure, 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 pleasure. They just press the pleasure button. And when they meditate, like, there's fewer physical distractions, so they can produce these virtual and they get practice to also to produce virtual experiences like this, and then they just keep like making the pleasurable ones like natural. Obviously, instinctually too, they'll probably do that. So it'll be like this symbolizes a rudiment, like comfort or pleasure, and they're probably gonna do that. Like, if not like by like thinking about like something pleasurable emotionally, then physically could be too, like, and or so in the second jhana, I think what's happening is what could be happening is like there's physical, I mean the real experience, there's real experience or virtual experience. So in the real experience, obviously there's not much there's it's reduced influence because it's a meditation, right? But in the virtual experience, what normally goes down is that there's like chunks of COE, there's chunks of focus that people are used to thinking in, like their usual, like to get through life, they like people, and I guess animals and other things, they make chunks of COE or like regular flows, like if this then that kind of things, like reasonings. So they have flows like chunks of these COE. But then in the second jhana, I think what happens is like people learn to like can learn to like break these up. And what happens is like when you learn to break these up, you can start to perceive like outside of like regular experience, or regular virtual experience at least. So these like regular types of ways of thinking can be like, it's kind of like thinking in new ways, but it's more like breaking down what thoughts and processes, I guess processes, um, happen like just instinctually due to like everyday life, just getting through that, or like figuring out how to do things like those processes that have been built up over time. People can break them down because they're able like to, they're not as distracted because of their meditation, so they can do that. And obviously they'll have a lot more practice making, in like the first jhana, they'll have practice making these virtual experiences because they want more of these rudiments. Because they'll do in the first jhana, they'll just be like pressing the pleasure button, like boop boop boop, or the comfort button, boop 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 boop, again and again and again. It's like the bliss kind of thing. They're like infinite bliss, as much as they want, like, possible, they can do. Try, I guess. And so in the second jhana, I think this is what happens. Like break up these like chunky processes of focus. And I'm putting an arrow here because I'm just, not because it's going through 3D space. Like, I guess it could be like going through 3D space, like movement in 3D space, but also I think I'm just like, you can think of it as like these are frame, like anyway, like I'm thinking of it these as like going through other moments as well. You can think of that. Okay, so the third jhana, I think what's going on in terms of LWC theory is that, and these are Buddhist jhanas or dhyanas, however it's pronounced. So that's the real experience, which is being significantly reduced in meditation. So virtual experience, right? So these broken up processes here. So what happens in the third jhana, I think, is that it's supposed to be like mindful. So what I think is like, these are like not only broken up, but also like learn, like it's the meditator can learn to use them or utilize them. So instead of just breaking them, it's like learning to utilize them in useful ways, the broken up pieces of those processes. Okay, so, and then the fourth jhana, like, okay, so in the, you'll see here, I put like in this in parentheses, like they're starting to perceive them, the broken up pieces that are outside normal perception, or ordinary perception, whatever they were perceiving before. So, So starting to utilize those inside, or what was in ordinary perception was outside, whether they're like the chunky pieces or the broken up pieces of focus, COE. So there's the fourth jhana. What I think is happening is like, so like the first jhana, like if people make or produce virtual experiences when they're meditating, so this is reduced. The real experience, the virtual experiences are heightened, or like more focus can be given to them because less is like on this, so more focus can be distributed, more COE or focus can be distributed on virtual experiences. So like in the first jhana, they're probably going to be pressing that pleasure button, like boop, 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 or they're, for rudiments, they're producing these like rudimentary experiences, virtual ones. Anyway, so the fourth jhana is, it might be like, instead of doing that, they're learning to like, it's kind of like when a child like eats candy. They eat candy because it tastes good, but then when they're an adult, they're like, okay, candy may taste good, but in moderation. And also, I don't have to eat candy all the time because I can do what's useful and not just what feels good. So this is kind of what that is, what I think is going on in the fourth jhana. It's like not just do what feels good, but what is more useful. So not just these anti-rudimentary, like virtual anti-rudiments and virtual rudiments, not just those, but like what happens in the fourth jhana, I think, is like they start to like just produce virtual experiences that are more useful in the long term, at least, rather than just like short term, like hitting the pleasure button, so to speak, or the comfort button, whatever, or wisdom, love, wisdom, courage. But I guess love, wisdom, courage is probably what they're doing when it's more useful. So I guess I'm talking about like survivance, comfort, pleasure, recognition more when I'm talking about hitting the pleasure button. So anyway, they like go, they, instead of like, yeah, producing like more virtual experiences, I mean, they can still in the fourth jhana. It's just that when it's like they practice breaking up these usual processes in the second and third, or they practice breaking up in the second jhana, and then in the third practiced using them, like they might like practice in the fourth jhana, they might have learned or are learning to or like are doing, like using those broken up pieces to like to not just in, and not just put that COE in pleasurable or like these types of virtual experiences, but in like other ones as well. So that's probably like more the fourth jhana, because that makes them more mindful, because not only are they thinking about just what feels good, etc., but like other virtual experiences too. So that would make them more mindful, because they're spreading out this, they're able at least to spread out COE, or to like put it in virtual experiences that they wouldn't normally do, because they might normally just do this first jhana type thing. So in the fifth jhana, what I think is happening in terms of LWC theory is that there's usually like a reasoning of sufficiency, or ROS, that goes like keeps the COE in there, like for virtual experiences, but, and I guess real experiences too, but like virtual hyphen real, I guess. But in the fifth jhana, I think what's happening is that this ROS can be extended, so it's like you're not limiting yourself to like just like this usual experiences area, because it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be like infinite space. So it's like not just limiting proprioception and other kinds of sensations to just one space like that. It's like and then what differs it from the sixth jhana, I think, is like it's not necessarily filling up that space, it's just like extending this ROS out, so that it's like not limiting to that space there, like virtually or real experientially, really experientially. And okay, so the sixth jhana, like I said, so I don't think like I said, in the fifth jhana, I don't think it's like extending that ROS like this, or ROSs, but I don't think it's like filling it up necessarily. But in the sixth one, I think it's more like it's supposed to be infinite consciousness, I think. So it extends the ROS in the fifth, and then the sixth, it starts to fill it up. Like, just the meditator can learn to fill up this bigger area, so that it's like, instead of not being perceived out here, it's perceived. So it's conscious. So the meditator is more conscious of that area. Like, either, like, it may not be like what people regularly think of as conscious of that like conceptual space, but yeah, which would make, that would naturally be called like more mindful, or like more conscious. So infinite consciousness, because if it's infinite space and then filling up that space with COE would be infinite consciousness, at least in like spatially, at least spatially. So jhana 7 might, or 7th jhana might be like, I think it's infinite, or it's like nothingness. So like this, when it was filled up, like, so okay, so fifth is like extending the ROSs, sixth is filling up whatever is inside the ROSs, or more, filling it up more. I don't know if it can be completely filled up, but it's like, yeah, but it's like more filled up. And then seventh is like, so when it's filled up like this, like outside, it's far away from regular perception of virtual experience or real experience, or then they can start to like revise that area, so it could be like to start to perceive as concepts, like the focus or the COE can start to like perceive concepts. But in the 7th jhana, it doesn't have to do that. It just can be focus or COE. And then it's like way out there, because ROS just as far as you want to extend that, or the meditator can extend ROSs out. So when it doesn't, and it also like rarefies, or I think, or like it can like reduce the COE in this area, so it's not like really dense, and it's not as much, it wouldn't be as much collected, I guess, condensed, I'm trying to think of the right word, in these like areas, but it like spreads out there, so it doesn't like it doesn't like the COE out there in that infinite space, infinite consciousness, like doesn't like conceptualize as much in this 7th jhana, I think, or as like at least for revision, but for that process of deeding, I think it might. Anyway, okay, so the 8th jhana, it might be like, what was it? Infinite or perception and non-perception. That's what it is. So I think it's like when it's spread out, and then when it's filled up, or at least spread out, and then the ROS goes out, and then the COE spreads out. Then it can start to make it like, the COE can start to make other perceptual areas, like areas from which, or at which, like almost like other entities, I guess, but it just areas at which there could be new experiences, whether they're like, these could be like really small experiences too. They don't have to be like a whole human perception, like perceptual, like area, I guess, or region, but it could be like very small or very large. I think it would make sense because this being the eighth jhana, because it's like then perception could happen at these points, and there could be more than just three, but and then these can like blink in and out, but the perception could then, because COE could be way out, it's way out there, remember, because ROS is extended, and then it was like COE can go way out because the ROS or multiple ones are extended. It can go way out, and then it's also not, it wouldn't be as condensed to these ordinary places where they would be, or where they were before. So the meditator can like make other, I guess, other like places of perception, but then also non-perception. There might be COE out there that's like that's not doing that. Anyway, this is a reference, so hopefully it's helpful.